The Z salvage team prided themselves on their efficiency. Xeno relics were their bread and butter, the decaying husks of extinct civilizations littering the vastness of the Orion Belt, a potential treasure trove. Captain VK, a seasoned Thean with decades of scuttle runs to his name, knew there was profit to be made out here, even if it took some kite-staining work. Today, however, his crew stumbled onto something far more than scrap metal riches. Void take me, his comms crackled with static in the low-pitched thrum of land speech, his first mate Cole's voice taut, with surprise. V's compound eyes narrowed. Cole never swore, not on salvage operations. What's got those feathers of yours ruffled? First he barked into the comm, the hum of his powered exoskeleton filling the claustrophobic confines of the scavenger ship. Captain, you need to see this. Sector Gamma 3. Cole replied, a note of urgency in his voice that set VRA's mandibles twitching. The salvage, a human warship. The Nautilus hung in the blackness of space like a ghost story made solid, its hull pockmarked and scarred, remnants of a battle so ancient it had faded from even the collective chronicles of the land's stellar archives. Humans were peculiar, short-lived, volatile, a bewildering mix of savagery and technological wonder. They were gone now, wiped out centuries ago in their final defiant stand against the Federation. That could be an old battlecruiser, first VRA said, squinting at the display in front of him. Ancient human battleships were notoriously durable, some even contained caches of archaic yet valuable technology. Standard procedure, it's not that, Captain Cole said, his voice low. It's the life signs. Life signs. The term sent a chilling pulse through VRA's thorax. The Nautilus should have been a tomb, a relic, not a living ship. Human negative. A single signature. Definitely mammalian. Faint. But their V's exoskeleton hissed as he shifted his weight. A live human was a problem on a cosmic scale. The treaties that ended their war were built on the certainty of their extinction. Any hint of their survival and the Federation they were now a part of would collapse like a dying star. Go. To the area VRA snapped, mandibles working furiously. Alert the fleet. We may need an inquisitorial team for this, with all due respect. Captain Cole's voice crackled in V's ear. An inquisitor is likely to sanitize the target. Perhaps it would be wise to investigate first. It was risky, horribly so. An inquisitor would have his head if this gamble went wrong. Cole wasn't just his best flyer. The land had a nose for profit that rivaled a Callan syndicate boss. If there was anything valuable to be gleaned from the human relic, Cole would know. Agreed. Well, prepare a docking team, Vra said, the decision leaving a sour taste in his mouth. His compound eyes locked on the image of the Nautilus. This wasn't just salvage anymore. It was tiptoeing around unexploded mines in a pitch-black munition dump. The docking clamp hissed as it made contact with the Nautilus. The air inside the derelict was frigid, smelling of rust and stale oxygen. Lieutenant Rax, a Thorian as steady as a neutron star, was the first through. The beam of his mag pistol slicing through the darkness. VRA, Cole, and 2 Callan enforcers followed, their bulky frames filling the narrow corridor of the old battleship. The deeper they moved, the more the tension in V's chitinous plate grew. Ancient warships were labyrinths designed to confuse and deter boarders. Worse, the lights were barely functional, casting flickering ominous shadows on the scarred alloy walls. This felt less like a salvage operation and more like an autopsy. Readings indicate a sealed compartment up ahead, Cole whispered, his Avon eyes gleaming in the low light. That's where the sign of life is originating. Rax. Reach the door, V ordered, his voice echoing in the silence. The Thorian lieutenant nodded, the thermocharge glowing an eerie crimson as he set it against the rusted barrier. The blast tore through the decaying metal with a shriek of tortured alloy, setting a shower of sparks into the gloom beyond. The 5 Xenos surged in, mag pistols raised. The compartment was small and dim, a single cryogenic pod standing in the center, its glass casing frosted with age. Inside lay a figure, unquestionably human, its pale flesh visible beneath the tattered remains of some archaic military uniform. The cryotub's lid hissed open, releasing a swirl of freezing mist. V tightened his grip on his weapon. No human could survive cryosleep that long without horrific genetic modification. Whatever was in that pod, it wasn't fully human anymore. Yet the figure that clawed its way out was lean, almost gaunt, the face lined and etched with the weariness of 1,000 battles. The figure blinked bleary eyes as if adjusting to the light after centuries of slumber. Then those eyes snapped open, hard, cold, and blazing with simmering fury. What the hell? The human's voice was a guttural growl, a language VRI didn't understand, yet the visceral shock of hearing a long-dead species echoed in his mandibles. His Thean and Callan subordinates recoiled in pure, instinctive terror. Only Cole, with his Lan intellect, stood transfixed. "We are a Federation salvage crew," he said in Galactic Standard, his voice slightly faltering. The humans' eyes slowly focused on the assembled Xenos, their confusion evident. Then, understanding dawned. And with it came a rage so potent the air seemed to crackle with it. "Xeno scum," the human snarled, the language shifting seamlessly into Galactic Standard, though rough and accented by disuse. Before any of them could react, the human lunged forward. A primal scream of anger tearing from his throat. VRA had seen warriors charge into battlefields fueled by fear or righteous fury, but the human's attack wasn't tactical, wasn't even insane. It was a whirlwind of raw, desperate hatred, every strike meant to kill or maim. Rax, the unlucky vanguard, was caught off guard, the human's fist smashing into his thorax, denting his exoskeleton and sending him hurtling back with a strangled gasp. The Calorian guards reacted, their bulky mag cannons barking with thunderous roars. The human was a blur, though, dodging and weaving through the kill zone with a speed that seemed impossible after being roused from such a long slumber. One Calorian screamed as the human, with seemingly inhuman strength, hoisted him by his armored collar and flung him into his partner, both Xenos collapsing in a tangle of limbs and weaponry. "Take him down." Vria roared, horrified and fascinated in equal measure. This wasn't a relic, a fading ember from the past. The human was a star gone supernova. Cole, finally shaking himself out of his stupor, flicked a switch on his gauntlet, activating a disruptor field meant to immobilize targets. The field washed over the human, the crackling energy causing him to stumble. He roared in defiance, eyes blazing with a primal fire that made Vrare's thorax tremble. The disruptor whined, straining under the sheer force of the human's will. For a single terrifying second, it seemed like he would break through it. Then his body spasmed, and he crumpled to the floor, breath rasping harshly. VRA approached cautiously, every instinct screaming at him to blast the downed human into oblivion. Yet curiosity battled that primal fear. This wasn't some battle-crazed berserker despite the fury and impossible strength. There was a flicker of calculation in the human's eyes, a tactical awareness that spoke of more than just mindless rage. "Secure him," V ordered, his mandibles clicking nervously. He had stumbled upon something potentially explosive, a wild card that could shift the very balance of galactic power. The ghosts of humanity were not so easily laid to rest, it seemed. They bound the human in heavy-duty restraints, the once formidable warrior now subdued and glaring daggers at his captors. Back on the salvage vessel, in a hastily converted holding cell, VRA stood before the captured anomaly. The human had ceased his struggles, instead studying his surroundings with the steely gaze of a cornered predator. "Identify yourself," VRA demanded, his voice amplified by the holding cell's acoustics. "Captain Nathaniel DeMarco, Sol Defense Fleet," Earth the man spat, the words carrying a weight that V could feel despite not grasping their full context. Memory stirred, fragments of old records painting a picture of a proud, warlike race that clung stubbornly to their single-star system. "Earth is no more. Humans are extinct," V stated bluntly. This was the hard truth they had built upon, a foundation stone of the Federation. If this man was proof that it was all a lie. "Like hell," the human DeMarco snarled. "We bled you, Xeno bastard, for every inch of space. You may have won the war, but we're not dead yet." Vrara exchanged uneasy glances with Cole. He'd hoped for a delusional relic, a survivor driven mad by isolation. This was something else entirely, a defiant ember smoldering from the ashes of the past. "How did you survive?" VRA asked, land curiosity taking hold. DeMarco's gaze swept over them, lingering on the unfamiliar Avon form of the first mate. "Cryopod malfunction. Looks like I overslept a lifetime or two," he said, oblique humor lining his voice. His words were measured now, the initial explosion of rage subsiding under a cold layer of calculation. "What's your next move?" Captain VRA needed to know, needed to plan. If DeMarco escaped, reported to some unknown human remnant, it would be a catastrophe. DeMarco barked a bitter laugh. "Me? Survive. Get answers. Maybe a little bit of that sweet payback you Xenos love to preach about." His eyes narrowed. "But first I need to know a few things. How long was I under? How much has changed?" The question hung in the air, heavy and laden with possibilities. It was a strategic question, not one of mere curiosity. V knew revealing too much was a risk the human would use any scrap of information to his advantage. But keeping him ignorant was just as dangerous. This wasn't a mere curiosity to be dissected, it was a tactical mind emerging from a self-imposed exile. He turned to Cole, the land's avid features composed in thought. First, what are protocols in a situation like this? There aren't any. Cole admitted. There's never been a precedent. An Inquisitor would sanitize everything, eliminate the variables, and option V would keep open. No Xeno in their right mind would risk the fallout if the existence of surviving humans got out. Yet the thought of snuffing out this tenacious spark, this echo of a dead warrior race, sat uneasily with him. DeMarco wasn't a relic, he was a wild card thrown into a carefully balanced galactic deck. He could be the key to understanding this extinct species or the spark that would ignite a firestorm. A flicker of movement caught his attention. The human, bound as he was, had shifted with unnatural grace, testing the restraints. Even captive, he exuded an aura of coiled danger. "You won't break free," human Vare stated, projecting confidence he didn't entirely feel. "Probably not," DeMarco conceded, a flicker of amusement in his eyes. "But I might break a few of your friends." The threat was veiled but carried enough weight to make the Callan guards bristle. "Listen," Vare began carefully, considering his words. "It's been 450 cycles since the war." DeMarco visibly paled. 400, your people are gone. Your planet 2V finished." Pain flickered behind the human's defiance, grief, or perhaps the phantom echo of survivors' guilt. "And the Federation. You Xeno bastards," DeMarco spat, regaining his composure with alarming speed. VRI sensed the human was baiting him, searching for weakness, looking for any crack he could exploit. He decided on calculated honesty, the best tool in his arsenal. "The Federation is an alliance of species," he explained, watching DeMarco's reaction closely. "The Thorian, the Lions, the Calorian, and several others. Founded in the aftermath of the war, meant to prevent another conflict on that scale." His chitin-plated thorax clenched. The war itself was a forbidden topic, the mere mention of it enough to trigger the cleanse protocols of the ever-vigilant Inquisitors. DeMarco's eyes, once blazing with fury, flickered with a mix of disbelief, then suspicion. "An alliance? You expect me to believe that?" he scoffed. After everything, his voice trailed off, hinting at depths even VI didn't fully understand. This was the moment, the crossroads. VRA had to make a choice. He could maintain protocol, let the human stew in his isolation, alert the Inquisitors, and have them wipe the whole incident from existence. But a sliver of curiosity, fueled by Cole's earlier words, tugged at him. "The past is complex," human VRA said, the admission strange on his forked tongue. There were indiscretions on all sides. He was pushing boundaries, skirting the edge of danger. This conversation alone could put him under inquisitorial scrutiny. Yet the defiance of this long-dead soldier ignited something within him. A flicker of surprise crossed DeMarco's face, a chink in his armor of hatred. "No kidding?" he asked, his voice laced with bitter sarcasm. "But perhaps there's more you don't know about this new galaxy," Captain DeMarco Cole interjected, the land's voice smooth and calm. A negotiator, VR realized the first mate would take on the role of confidant for the human. It was a clever, dangerous ploy, a calculated risk. DeMarco stared at the Avanzino, studying the strange creature before him. "Fine," he finally barked. "Talk." It began as a trickle of information: the establishment of the Federation, the treaties binding the once warring factions into a semblance of peace, the careful dance of trade and power plays that held the galaxy in a tense balance. Cole spoke carefully, filtering information, weaving a narrative designed to pique DeMarco's interest while keeping their most vital secrets under wraps. The human listened at first with open skepticism, then with a begrudging fascination. His outburst of anger ebbed, replaced with a clinical detachment as he dissected the state of the galaxy. So DeMarco rumbled after a long silence. "Earth is gone. Humanity is scattered, hunted, or just playing dead. You Xenos patched up your differences, built yourselves a nice little playground." He barked a bitter laugh. "Tell me, do you sleep well at night knowing what it cost?" VRE coiled, an instinctive surge of outrage at the accusation, but Cole raised a feathered hand, cutting him off. "No," the Lan admitted, his voice devoid of the usual diplomacy. "None of us sleep soundly, Captain DeMarco. Every major race in the Federation carries the weight of past actions. The cost of survival." DeMarco's gaze swept across their faces, the defiance in his eyes dimming slightly. He had expected gloating, a celebration of his people's downfall. Finding a measure of guilt instead was clearly disconcerting. "Is that remorse I hear, First Mate?" he asked, his voice mocking but the edge blunted. "Awe," Captain Cole corrected, an awareness that such sacrifices shouldn't be in vain. "We built the Federation on the promise of a better future, on avoiding the bloodshed of the past." Noble words, DeMarco sneered, yet his posture shifted. No longer a caged animal, he seemed to be sizing them up with newfound calculation. "And if someone rocks the boat, disrupts your delicate little peace. VRA and Cole exchanged a silent look. The human wasn't talking about himself anymore. His mind was racing, looking for weaknesses, for pressure points. Captain Vara, the shout snapped them back to the present. One of the Callan guards stood at the entrance of the holding cell, panic etching his reptilian features. Urgent transmission from Fleet Command, highest priority. A surge of apprehension ran through the cramped space, cutting short DeMarco's speculation. Fleet Command's involvement meant trouble, the kind of trouble that could bury this entire incident and its inconvenient human under layers of protocol and bureaucracy. Patch it through, VRA ordered, mandibles working nervously beneath his mask. This was it, the moment their little gamble would be revealed and consequences would sweep down upon them all. A holographic projection sprang to life, the rigid face of Inquisitor Varrock filling the space with an icy aura of authority. Captain VRA, the Inquisitor's smooth voice dripped with veiled suspicion. You alerted us of a most unusual finding. VRA swallowed, the words catching in his thorax. Affirmative, Inquisitor, a human survivor aboard a derelict battleship of the Old War era, the Nautilus. A ripple of surprise echoed through the small compartment, even DeMarco's hardened features displaying a flash of shock. If his initial awakening was a metaphorical earthquake, the presence of an Inquisitor raised the stakes to apocalyptic levels. Intact, Varrock's compound eyes narrowed in an unnervingly insect-like gesture. The human was in some form of cryosleep. Cole interjected, his voice steady despite the rising tension. Physically unharmed. Mentally uncertain, due to prolonged isolation. The protocol for such a scenario is clear, Inquisitor Varrock stated, his voice flattening into a cold monotone. Eliminate the anomaly. The Federation cannot risk its stability on the whim of a single relic. VRA knew the order was expected. No Inquisitor would risk the possibility of a human resurgence not on their watch. Yet he hesitated, an image of the human warrior flashing before his eyes, defiant, cunning, with a flicker of shared guilt. Inquisitor VRA began, then paused, struggling for the right words. The human, Captain DeMarco, displays advanced combat and strategic awareness. His interrogation could yield valuable insight into Earth's military capabilities, knowledge we could use to bolster our defenses. You overreach, Captain Varrock cut him off, the Inquisitor's voice filled with disdain. The human is broken, alone, an echo of a dead race. You'd risk the entire Federation for a shadow. DeMarco shifted in his restraints, a spark of amusement dancing in his cold eyes. The Inquisitor's dismissal was both a reprieve and an insult. The human, the broken shadow of a dead race, saw his worth reduced even further. Perhaps that was something he could use. Perhaps the Inquisitor is correct. Cole chimed in, his land mind always seeking opportunity. Perhaps this human is simply a broken relic, a relic best studied before disposal. Intriguing, Inquisitor Varrock mused, his own multifaceted eyes now shifting towards DeMarco's bound form. The Inquisitors were not known for mercy, but they were meticulous and morbidly curious in their pursuit of security. A living archive from a dead era. Cole pressed on. With the proper persuasion, the human might divulge Earth's tactical doctrines, weaknesses in their fleet deployment, technological secrets. A treasure trove of intelligence, Inquisitor, if approached with the right methodology. Varrock studied DeMarco critically. The human was a mess, physically weakened, his spirit battered by isolation and shock, yet a kernel of defiance remained, that same dangerous, calculating fire that VRA saw smoldering even in chains. Very well, the Inquisitor declared, surprising them all. I will dispatch a specialist team to conduct a thorough assessment. Until then, Captain VRA, keep this artifact under maximum security. Any breach will be considered treason and treated accordingly. The transmission ceased as abruptly as it began, leaving a chilling silence in its wake. VRA exhaled a puff of vapor that hung in the air like a ghost. He had just gambled the fate of the Federation on the back of a dead man's unbroken will. DeMarco, the relic, watched all this with a predator's gleam in his eyes, so he rasped, the defiance returning with a vengeance. Which one of you lucky bastards gets to break me? The specialist team arrived with unsettling efficiency. VRA watched as a sleek inquisitorial vessel docked against their scavenger ship, disgorging a quartet of figures that radiated an aura of cold detachment. The team leader was a xenospecies unfamiliar to VRA, an arachnid being with 8 multifaceted eyes glinting ominously. Greetings, Captain VRA, the creature's voice crackled like brittle leaves through the comm link. I am Interrogator Prime X. Allow me to handle this specimen. X's team swiftly descended upon the holding area. They ignored DeMarco's defiant snarls as they detached the human from his restraints, replacing them with their own high-tech bindings that pulsed with an ominous energy. Cole moved to protest, but VRA held him back with a subtle gesture. They were on thin ice already, and open interference with the Inquisitors was a quick route to oblivion. This way, VRA said, nodding towards the airlock where their guests awaited. While curiosity gnawed at him, he couldn't deny the relief at handing over the volatile relic to the professionals. DeMarco offered one last rebellious glare before his form disappeared, swallowed by the Stark Inquisitorial ship. As their unwanted passengers departed, taking the walking wildfire with them, Cole finally spoke. "This is madness, Captain. We've unleashed something." He shook his head wearily. Perhaps, VRA admitted, the image of DeMarco's burning defiance etched in his mind. Or maybe we've just opened a door. The Federation has grown comfortable in its peace. It was time they remembered there were monsters beyond their borders, and perhaps still within. His eyes settled on the cold blackness of space, where the Nautilus had once hung, the ghost ship that delivered a stark awakening. The Federation was a house of cards, intricately balanced on a foundation of lies. The human, broken or not, was a wild card flung violently into the mix. Whether chaos or a new era would follow, only time would tell. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel. For every comment that says we will heart every single one of them, thank you for your time.